90%, 80%, 80%, gone, 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 not 100%. What's the future hold here, sir?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on today. I thought they did a very effective job in that press conference of focusing on the military objectives. And what that means is there's a tendency to conflate tactical, operational, and strategic objectives. And what they focused on today was that 80% number essentially makes them combat ineffective, which makes the region much more stable and much more safe. We now have the follow-on work of following through on a ceasefire and ensuring that they're not able to reconstitute and that there's no ability for them to affect any of their neighbors or any of the commercial shipping going through the Strait of Hormuz.
Does that amount to a victory, though, from your standpoint? And I'm asking you, given that you've got the military chops. We're civilians here, and we're looking at it one way. You're able to look at it, I think, from a broader picture, from a more informed position, maybe.
Yeah, no, I see this as an unequivocal victory. So when you're talking about military objectives, you're looking at, quite literally, have we eliminated their ability to conduct military operations? Can they impose any actual force on anyone else in the region? And what we're seeing right now is what is left of a decentralized structure of individual missile launchers or individual units that are responding that may not even know of the ceasefire. We've essentially eliminated their command and control. We've destroyed their Navy, and we've destroyed most of their missile and drone capability. There will always be one-offs, but when you're measuring military effectiveness, you're looking at what was there before, what is there now, and what will they be able to do in the future. And I think Pete Hegseth said this properly. This is an unequivocal victory for the U.S. military.
I hear you, and I want to believe everything you're saying, but I guess the part for me, just as a civilian watching this, they're still firing. They're still dropping bombs. So militarily castrated, that's not the words you used, but that's what occurred to my brain.
All the guys here are wincing right now, Dr. Gina.
Yeah, sorry. It's the only word. I couldn't remember exactly how he put it, but can you address that part of my question? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. No, and you're not wrong in that there's not going to be 100% destruction. What you have is an inability for them to effectuate any real command and control. So there might be a one-off missile attack, a one-off drone attack. Now, what will happen is that anytime they do anything, we're able to zero in on where it was launched from, and usually we're able to destroy that site immediately. So now that they're running this sort of decentralized asymmetric response, it's in their best interest to control what remains of their combat power and ensure that it's not going to be targeted and ensure that this ceasefire remains in effect. So anytime that you have combat operations, there's always going to be this handful of capability that you cannot get after during the majority of hostilities that have occurred. But I think we've reached that next phase where we've had overwhelming effects, and whatever remains is just what cannot be controlled or cannot be targeted right now. But I do not see any real impact of what they're doing.
All right, so Chris, let me ask you then the follow-up. So let's say 2 weeks go by, there is a deal in place, it holds. So what happens there? Everybody goes home? That's the end of it? I mean, like if military objectives have been accomplished, there's still the fallout as to what happens next, whether it be there on the ground or potential regime change with Iranians going to the streets. I mean, what happens? We're going to send our carriers and everybody home at that point?
Well, that will be a decision that will be made at the end of the 2 weeks. But I do think what you're seeing is that we were running up against the War Powers Resolution 60-day window. And at the end of the 60 days, you would have to address whether or not there was military necessity that remained as to what triggered the military response in the first place. As we remember, President Trump acted unilaterally. He did not consult Congress. He didn't need to. He acted decisively in what he thought was an imminent threat in anticipatory self-defense and also in response to a multitude of attacks over years. So now what you have is at the 60-day mark, Congress would have the ability to invoke the War Powers Resolution and either withhold funding or demand an explanation as to why combat operations needed to continue. So there is the potential that at the end of these 2 weeks, if there has not been a break of the ceasefire and that there are no more immediate military objectives, that you would see a significant withdrawal of U.S. forces. What I have said all along, that this needs to be a regional solution and there needs to be an international support. and that is the folks that are benefiting from the Strait of Hormuz the most need to include some level of naval assets to ensure safe passage. And that whatever were to occur after the 2-week ceasefire, there needs to be an international level of support to ensure that an international strait remains open. This is not the sole responsibility of the United States.